Hello everyone, and welcome back to 30 Days of Java. It's final day now, and today we'll be creating another project that is a weather application in Java using one of the most famous frameworks of Java, Spring Boot framework. So let's begin. By the end of this video, you should have a working weather application that looks something like this. And when I put in a city name here and then click on Get Weather, it shows me the current weather of Delhi. Now to keep this project simple, I have created a public repository named Weather App that you can use to download the skeleton project. Now you are free to use and create your own project from scratch, but I highly recommend using the skeleton project because our main concern and focus should be on learning Java and not on HTML and CSS for this project. Now to clone this repository, I would click on code here and then copy this path and then go to my directory where I have to clone this, then open cmd here and then type git clone and the link. This would clone the repository. Now once the project has been cloned, we can open this project using intellij. Now I already have this project open. And for this project, we have two branches here. So if I go to terminal and type in git branch, for now I only have start branch, but I can also check out another branch, end. Now this end branch already has the finished project. So if you are stuck at any step or if your code is not working, you can compare your code with the end branch code, and that should resolve the issues. As you can see in src folder, we already have the controller and model that we'll be creating in this course. Now let's switch back to the start branch. Now before we start writing code, let's see what we get in the skeleton project. So first, we have this weather app application file here that contains the main method, but it doesn't have anything yet. Then we get a couple of CSS files that we'll be using in the index.html and weather.html, but I'll not go into much detail for them since this is a Java course, not a CSS one. Then we have this background image of clouds for the background of our application. And then we have this index.html file. So this is the home page that the user would get, where he can pass in the city name and then click on submit button. As you can see here, we have defined a form here that takes in an input parameter, and then we have a submit button here, and we are using Bootstrap and some custom styling to style this page. Then in this weather.html file, we are showing that city's weather data. So we are using a couple of Bootstrap elements here and then also using the Thymeleaf here. So as you can see here, we are using Thymeleaf to append classes to icons and also text. Then in this application.properties, we have defined a couple of properties that will be setting along the way. And finally, we have this pom.xml file. Now in this pom.xml file, we have a couple of dependencies defined. Let's quickly go over them. First, we have this dependency for Spring Boot Starter Thymeleaf that provides Thymeleaf integration. Now you might be wondering, what is Thymeleaf? So Thymeleaf is a Java template engine for web and standalone environments. It is used to generate HTML, XML, JavaScript, and CSS, and other text-based content. So basically, you can think of it as a tool that you can use to define views for your application. Then we have another dependency here that is Spring Boot Starter Web that adds web development features. Then we have Spring Boot DevTools that provides development time enhancements. Then we have a library called Lombok here that helps reduce boilerplate code. Then we have the Spring Boot Starter Test that provides testing support. Then we have an HTTP client here that we can use for making HTTP requests over the internet. Then a JSON dependency, that is a library for JSON serialization and deserialization. And finally, here we have defined some build configurations. You can ignore them for now. Now that we understand what we are getting back in our starter project, let's start diving straight into coding. So first, we'll go to this weather app application, and to make this application a Spring Boot application, we'll use an annotation called @Spring Boot application. Now this annotation is a convenience annotation that is used to mark a class as the main entry point for a Spring Boot application. It combines three important Spring annotations, but we can leave it for now for simplicity's sake. Then inside this main method, we can start typing in Spring application dot run and then weather app application dot class comma args and then close. And that's it. We have our first Spring Boot application created already. Now to see this application in action, we first need to create a controller class first. For that, we'll go to this package here, then click on new and then click on package. We'll name this package here as controller. Then inside this, we'll create a Java class named weather controller. Now to make this weather controller a Spring Boot controller, we can use another annotation here, that is @controller. Now this denotes that this weather controller is a Spring Boot controller that would handle all the HTTP calls that would be made from the HTTP templates that we have here in this index.html and weather.html. Now here we need to define a couple of more methods. So first, we'll define getMapping, which defines a mapping for a get call, and then the path here, that is /, then public string getIndex, then return index. Now let's understand first what we have written here. So here we have defined a method called getIndex that gets called when we get a get call here with the path /. So if I go back to my index.html page, you can see this is the home page that would be showing to user. So when we start this application would be started at localhost 8080 for now. And when a user clicks on it, he would need to see the home page, right? So that is why we have defined this get mapping / here that would return back this string index here that gets translated to index.html template in Spring Boot. So if I run this program now by typing in mvn space spring-boot run, and then open this application in Chrome, localhost 8080, you can see we are getting back the index page here, index.html. But if I type in anything here, Delhi, and then click on get weather, it fails saying 404 because we have not defined any endpoint here that would show the weather information. Now let's go back here and let's stop this application. Now that we can see the home page, let's start by writing a method for seeing the weather data of that city. For that, we'll create another get mapping here, and for this, we'll give it a path of /weather and public string get weather, and this method would take in a request parameter for city, as we would be passing the city name, and then model is model. Now here we would be using a web API to get back the weather data of a city. So for that, we'll be using this Open Weather Map API. So before we go any further, let's discuss what is an API. So an API or application programming interface is a set of rules or protocols for building and interacting with software applications. So in simple words, you can think of it as a middleware layer that softwares use to communicate with each other. So in this example, we are creating an application here and we need the weather data that is stored at the backend database for this Open Weather API. We'll use their weather API to get back that data. So it's acting like a middle layer that helps us communicating with the backend. So using this Open Weather API is pretty simple. You would first need to sign up to this website. Once you are signed up, then you can go to My API Keys. Here I can use my email, coding with GoldenCat at gmail.com, then my password. Once signed in, you can see it's showing you all the APIs that you have for this account. So we'll be using this API key here, that is weather key. Now for security purposes, I have hidden out these keys, but it should be visible to you. Now you can use this key here, copy it, and then go back to your program and then paste it under application.properties into this line, your API key here. Now we'll go back to our weather controller.java, and for calling that Open Weather API, we'll first define its URL here, string URL, and this is the URL that we'll be using, api.openweathermap.org/data. Here we'll give it the value for city, then plus our API key, and then and units equal to metric. Now we'll define this property here, API key, private string API key, and its value, we'll be picking that up from the application.properties value that we just pasted. So we can type in question mark API.key. Now we can import this class from Lombok. Now after this, we'll create a REST template here that we'll use to make the HTTP request to this web API. And then to store the response back from this API, we need to create yet another class here with the name weather response. For that, we'll go back to this package and create another package here with the name model. And then inside this model package, we'll create a Java class with the name weather response. You can click on add here and then define a couple of properties here. So first, we'll define a private string name, then private this. So we'll define these classes now. Private list weather, then private main, then private wind. So first, we'll create this sys class, public static class sys, and it would have a property called private string country. Now for this class, we'll need to set up the getter and setter for this property. So we can simply right click on this and then click on generate and then getter and setter. Then click on OK here. And as you can see, it automatically created getter and setter for this particular property. Now we'll create other classes here. So public static class weather, and this would have two properties, private int id and private string description. Now again, we'll create a getter setter for these properties. So we can use the shorthand key for this, alt plus insert, and then click on getter and setter, and we'll select both of them. After that, we'll create the class main, which have two properties, private double temperature, and for that we'll use temp, and then private int humidity. Now again creating getter and setter. And then finally wind, which would have only one property, private double speed. And then we'll also need to create getter and setter for these properties here. So again, we can add getter and setter for all of these properties. And we have a problem here. Okay, we can import java.utils here, and that resolves all the issues. Now we can use this in our weather controller.java. So I can import this class and then type in weather response equals to new equals to rest template dot get for object. Then we'll type in the URL for that API, then weather response dot class. here we are making an API call to that open weather map API, and then whatever we get back from that API, we are translating that or mapping that to our weather response class. Now once that is done, if we do get any response back, that is if weather response is not null, then we can map those values to a model property here that would be visible on the weather.html template. If you see here in the weather.html, under this key paragraph tags, you can see we are giving the values here as weather description, temperature, humidity, speed, and we'll be setting all of those values using the model that we are just creating. We can type in model.add attributes, then city, which should be equal to weather response dot get name. Now let's copy and paste this. Then for the country, you can type in get sys dot get country model dot. Then for the weather description, we'll use the get weather method here, then get 0th index 1, and then get description. Then for temperature, we can type in temperature here. Get main dot get temp. Then for humidity, then for wind speed, I need to capitalize this one. Then string weather icon. So this would show the weather icon for that particular city. If it is rainy, it would show clouds. If it is sunny, then it would show a sun here. So we can type in wi wm dash plus weather response dot get weather dot get 0 dot get id. Now this wi and wi, we are using the weather icons here. After that, we can add one final attribute here, weather icon. Now, if we do not get back anything from the API response, then we can add a model attribute with the name error, and its value should be city not found. This would get executed when the city name is invalid. And then we call return weather, which actually returns weather.html back to the user. So now if I run this program again, and then open this local host 8080, and then type in the name of a city here. I'm getting back an error that says invalid API key 401 unauthorized. So let's go back to our code here. Now I made a mistake here. So there we need to type in equal to here. Now let's stop this and run this again. And now it works. As you can see, it's showing the weather data for Delhi here. If I click on back here and then type in another city name like Tokyo, it shows the weather data for Tokyo as well. And it also works for cities with space in them. So San Francisco. And as you can see, it's working as expected. So there you have it. You have just created a very simple weather application using one of the most popular frameworks of Java, Spring Boot framework. Now this is a very basic Spring Boot project, and Spring Boot framework in itself is a really vast topic. Now if you want, I can create another course for that. So let me know in the comment section down below. And finally, congratulations on completing the 30 days of Java course. It takes determination and focus to complete a course of 30 days. So a great pat on the back for you. As always, we'll end this video with a quote that says, "What we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do." Thank you for watching and have a great day.